Shio, and thank you for watching the first event of the Gadugi Partnership's Celebrating Sequoyah Series. This year marks the bicentennial of the extraordinary accomplishment of Sequoyah's syllabary, an accomplishment that has allowed the Cherokee people to maintain, promote, and preserve the Cherokee language even in the face of 2 centuries of colonialism and attempted cultural genocide. Our first speaker is Ms. Ayla Bryant, a teacher at the new Kituwah Academy, the Cherokee language immersion school on the Qualla boundary. Ms. Bryant shares her experiences teaching at the Academy, as well as her passion for promoting and passing down the language. We hope that you'll join us for our next 2 events as well in October and in November. Shki. Let me start doing that. So they've been a great partner to work with us. If you're ever down in that area, go visit the Major Ridge Home Chieftains Museum. It's a terrific site, and they're really good people. They'll treat you well. So they're our co-sponsors, and really want to thank them for that. The other thing I wanted to do is just announce this is the first of 3 speaker events that we're going to be having. This year is the bicentennial of Sequoyah's syllabary. It's the bicentennial of the miracle that was Sequoyah's work. And so what we're doing this semester is we're celebrating that anniversary through this series, which is called the Celebrating Sequoyah Series. And our first speaker, I'll introduce her in just a bit, but that's going to be Ayla. She'll be talking to us here in just a few. Next month on October the 11th, we're going to have our second speaker, and that speaker is Mr. Kachi Tiger. And Mr. Tiger is the high school Cherokee language teacher at Cherokee High School. And so he's going to come and share with us his experiences teaching the language to high school students. At Cherokee, you have to have at least 1, and I think it may be now 2 semesters of Cherokee language classes in order to graduate. And so obviously the effort is really being put in to try to save the language and to preserve the language. And Mr. Tiger's on the front line of that. So I'm really excited to have him speak. When the poster and the announcements first went out about the series, someone asked me why in the world I was having an event like this on Columbus Day. And I explained that I'm not having an event like this on Columbus Day. I'm having an event like this on Indigenous Peoples Day. So that's what we'll be doing. And maybe, who knows, maybe we can light a fire under App State. Maybe they'll answer that email I sent 3 years ago about actually declaring Indigenous Peoples Day here on our campus. So who knows? So that's October the 11th. So we'd love to have you join us for that. And then as our celebration of Native American History Month, on November the 10th, we have Mr. James Standing Deer is going to be joining us. And he is an amazing speaker, really great guy, really big friend and supporter of the Gadugi program. So hope you all can join us for 1 or 2 of those. We would absolutely love to have you for those as well. The other thing I wanted to do just really quickly is I wanted to share, hopefully you all can see this. The Gadugi Partnership, we lost a really good friend yesterday. We lost someone who's been incredibly supportive of me, been incredibly supportive of the program, and just a wonderful influence on our students. And that's Miss Nelly Littlejohn. She passed away yesterday morning. And so I just wanted to acknowledge Nelly and remember her in this moment. And also just wanted to say that the program is going to dedicate the rest of our work this year, and we also would like to dedicate these 3 speakers, these events. We're going to dedicate those to Nelly's memory. She was just an exceptional person and a very bright light that was really special to me and to the program. She was a very dear friend. And one of my memories of Nelly is we met prior to the program that we have at Cherokee High School. We had a partnership with the Dora Reed Center, which is the Head Start program there on the boundary. And that's how Nelly and I met. We worked in the kitchen and together. And one of my memories of Nelly that I'll always remember is that she would, and the other folks in the kitchen that I worked with as well, she would prepare breakfast, a snack, lunch, and then a second snack for several hundred, little pre-K kids. And then after that was done and she had cleaned up and gotten the place straight, she would then go back into the kitchen and she would cook for all of the ASU students who were there with me as part of the project. And she did that every year that we were up there. So at the end of a very long day of cooking and cleaning, she then went back and made sure that our kids ate well, made sure that they all got an Indian taco, and made sure that none of the ASU students went home until they had some fry bread. So we're going to miss Nelly a lot, but we're dedicating the rest of our work this year and dedicating our speaker series to Nelly. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do now is I would like to introduce our speaker. And like I said, I had the amazing good fortune of getting to teach Ayla 3 semesters, well, 2 semesters and 1 summer class. And she was the first student to take all 3 of the classes, and just an inspiration to me, just somebody that I thoroughly enjoyed teaching. Just a tremendous young woman and a young leader among the Eastern Band of Cherokee. She's one of the reasons why I feel so confident that the nation is in very good hands, thanks to young leaders like Ayla. So I did see the message here. I will put the Facebook info back in the chat. I sure will. I'll copy and paste that for you all. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Ayla. And she is teaching at the new Kituwah Academy, which is the Cherokee immersion school on the boundary, which is doing just amazing, beautiful work there on the boundary. And so she'll tell us about her experience there, tell us about the work that she's doing. And then at the end, we will open it up. Any of you all have questions or comments for Ayla, just let us know. So if you'll hold your questions till the end, we'll definitely do the question and answer piece after she talks with us. So Ayla, I'm going to be quiet now and copy the Facebook stuff, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for being here so much.
Thank you for having me. I was extremely excited whenever I initially got your message about the program you're running still. And, I was just thinking back to my time whenever I took your course, and it really, I've carried it. And throughout the work that I'm doing now, I'm still looking back and reminiscing on some of the things we learned about together. So thank you for having me today. So my name is Ayla Bryant. I know it says Ayla Cruz on here. I am married, not to James Bryant. I am a language specialist on the early childhood side of the new Kituwah Academy. And additionally, I'm an enrolled member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. And before I get into the foundational work that we do here at Kituwah, I'm first going to start with a personal story of mine. So when I was a young child, like a lot of children, I had very severe separation anxiety when I began school. I remember waking up in the morning and, my stomach would be in knots. I'd be begging and crying and pulling every trick in the book. And I have these, strong memories of my dad sitting me down, and he would scold me and tell me about some of the things his grandmother went through when she went to school. And he would urge me to be grateful for, the school that I went to and how easy I had it and how I could never imagine what she had went through. My great grandmother, her name was Nora. She was in boarding school, and she was, of course, abused through that time. They had broken her knuckles. Even as an elderly woman, one of the main things I remember about her is just how broken her hands were. And just, the years of abuse and the things these children went through, of course, traumatized her. And one of the main things I think that brought that trauma for her was that she was punished for speaking her own language. That fear that she had instilled in her was one that she tried to fight for the remainder of her life. Just being a part of the culture was a fight for us as a people. She didn't teach her children the language, whether it be through fear or wanting to protect her own children. And her children went on not to teach her children. My father did not teach me, and I'm not a fluent speaker. So we fast forward 16 years, and I'm now beginning my program at New Kituwah Academy. And I'm in that same position now in the opposite side of working with those children with separation anxiety. Watching the kids come in, I know every trick in the book because I've played every trick in the book. I work in the 1-year-old room, and for a lot of the children, this is their first time being in school, and it's really hard for them. But each time I greet those children and I wipe their tears, I do think of my great grandmother. And when she was a child, I greet the children in their indigenous language. We speak freely and we live freely with our language. The children that I teach now hold absolutely no fear when they speak. And to me, that is my greatest accomplishment of being a part of that. They speak their great parents' language. And I believe in this program because I live in this program. I've been very grateful and blessed to work in this program. And it's just been an honor to work with them. So here at Kituwah Academy, we take children at 1 year old. So we're getting them right at that very vulnerable age when it comes to language. And we work with these children all the way until 6th grade. So we begin teaching children at Cherokee very young, of course, to create the strong foundations of the language. In our classrooms, we treat the Cherokee language as a first language. And we work very hard to limit the amount of English we actually use in the classroom. Our children are constantly involved in their Native American artwork and art forms. They participate in traditional gardening in the gardens at the school, and they eat traditional foods throughout their days. They sing traditional songs, participate in traditional dance, and we even do traditional sports. Just this week, we had a stickball tournament for some of the older boys at the school. It's a beautiful thing to see children truly living in an incorporated environment. Kituwah Academy has effectively reformed how we teach Native children. One of the main resources that we have at Kituwah is our community members, and we work directly with fluent speakers and elders. They are present members inside the school on a daily basis. Every single day I greet those elders, and they scold me because I'm not speaking the language as much as I should, and they really do push me to speak more. The elders provide a really thorough guide to the language, and they work directly with my supervisors, with us teachers, and our shared staff to create a very solid curriculum all around. We as teachers are actually required to participate in regular Cherokee classes. So I myself often feel as if I'm a student and I'm learning alongside the children. In addition to teaching children, Kituwah also requires families of students to attend language classes. It is very important for our curriculum that the children are also speaking at home. We do everything we can to separate that sever. Whenever I see children, it's a small town, when I see them at the food line or I see them at the football game, we're not speaking in English. It's not hello, it's shio. We're talking in the real language when we see them, and we do everything I can to separate that. They speak it at home, or whether, we're coming in and we're talking to parents, we're doing everything we can to speak in that Cherokee language. I have personally seen the classes that the parents attend, and the teachers that we have that are teaching us staff are just phenomenal. And they're truly dedicated to serving the community. Each member that I've seen at Kituwah Academy is just gone above and beyond. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear my dog in there, but yeah, so this is the kind of job that you live with and you take it home. And I don't mean that in a way that it's a chore, but truly when I come home, I'm still in that mindset of I want to speak. I don't want to forget. Me and my husband do everything we can to speak. And whenever we talk to family members, their siblings are speaking, their cousins are learning to speak. So this network of language spreads through the program. It's much more than just being in the classroom. And so, like he said, because I'm a teacher, I kind of want to open up the questions a little bit early. I'm really interested in what you guys think and what you guys would like to know. So if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. And let's see, I don't know if my thing keeps going mute or not. I'm kind of new to Zoom. So tell me if my video goes off or anything. Let's see here. Okay. Alrighty, can you guys hear me? You can hear us? Okay. Alrighty, so I'll open up to questions. If anyone has questions, let's see. It says Christina Helms to everyone. It says yes. I don't know if you're saying yes, I have a question.
And I added the Facebook too there at the side. So hopefully you all can see that. And I'll try to add the website as well.
Thank you. Just could we hear you? Hear me speak Cherokee? Was that the question?
I think they were saying that they could hear you. Your mic was good.
Oh, okay. All righty.
Could you tell us a little bit about because I'd love to hear more about the experience with how do the parents react when they have these classes? Because one of the things, and I think you touched on it, is, and this is, it's heartbreaking, but it's just the reality that for the community, in many ways, the language itself comes with all this baggage. It comes with all this historical trauma. Boarding schools made it a purpose of trying to erase the language. They made it their goal, to try to erase it. So it's not just that kids were told don't speak it. Kids were told you are wrong if you speak it, that there's an immorality, a backwardsness to speaking it. Do you find that parents are excited to learn? Do they take well to it? Or do you ever sense some hesitation with that?
Mm. Especially with some of the older caretakers, because, we don't only have parents, we have grandparents raisings, we have aunts, uncles, fosters. I find that especially with the elders is that there's that hesitation there. They're our biggest resource. But when you truly work with them and speak with them and hear some of the stories and the things they go through, like you said, it is a baggage and there is a trauma to it. And overcoming this has been one of the greatest barriers. I'm very fortunate to come into the program with it being as well established as it was. So the program, New Kituwah Academy, first began in around the 1990s. Joyce Dugan, which was the former chief of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, created the program with the purpose of course, rekindling the language. And then throughout 2010, the next former chief, Michelle Hicks, put a lot of funding. I believe we had about $3.5 million worth of funding put into it. Everyone in Cherokee, I think, realized if we don't do something now and do something with proper organization, we will lose the language. As hard as we try and, everything we do, it's still, sometimes it can be painful to realize it's almost not enough. There's still so much more that we want to do and work with. And I think, and I hope that this program is just, the starting point of many more. At Cherokee High School, like you said, they do require 2 semesters. And throughout elementary school, even at the public schooling away from Kituwah, they do Cherokee language classes. They have immersion courses. And, we all work together to make that more of an important part of our education, to spread that. Because like you said, my greatest accomplishment was being able to share those moments with the children, because I know personally my own blood and family grandmother would have never had that opportunity. And I wish that I could just send a message to heaven sometimes and just, tell her of all the work that we're doing and how it's going. And it's going well. There's nothing better than when a child runs up to you, he's like, Shio, and, they're playing with my Geekly, my dog. They say, Shio, I take my dogs for walks and I see the kids, and it's beautiful to hear them speak. And like I said, them speaking freely. It's not a whisper. It's not a hesitant, between me and you. It's open, and we want to share that.
That's a great point, because it had to be secret, for so long. There's the spot there on the boundary near the Unity building, the Unity sign. And there's a tree there, that was called the Weeping Tree when the boarding school was still there, because the tree the trunk is thick enough that a child could go and not be seen and sit there and just weep and just cry, whether it was crying for home or crying because of their treatment. No school should have a weeping tree. And yet it was there. We've got, I don't want to cut anybody that has a question, y'all, please jump right in. But one thing I also wanted to ask is, we've got a lot of future teachers who are here tonight. And I wonder if you could tell them a little bit about how you got that inspiration to teach, and then tell them a little bit about what the day-to-day, what it's like doing the job.
Oh yeah. So so I myself, being a teacher, all the future teachers out there. So we do have staff members that aren't even enrolled members. I don't know if you guys recently seen or followed Cherokee News, but in our Cherokee One Feather, we recently posted an article about an honorary member that we recently honored. His name, he goes by Hartwell. He's not an enrolled member. He's not personally Cherokee himself, but he is one of the most major resources to the program. He's fluent in the language himself. He's dedicated his life to the history. And, just because he's not, let's say, Cherokee blood, because, the Cherokee people, we adopted people based on who they were and how they acted. There are many people that would be considered family and tribe that maybe weren't blood. So we honor all people that honor us. We definitely have members that are enrolled, and yeah, we're hiring for a part-time. I don't know if anyone's interested, but and a substitute teacher. So if you're interested in that at all, or like the program or what you hear, if you go to ebcijobs.com, they'll have some listings up there if you're interested. So for me and a teacher, with my personal experience with the program, is that it's still daycare. I work with 1-year-olds. So, along with having, just the weight and pressure of maintaining the language, we have 9 babies in the classroom. So we're changing diapers and, doing curriculum just like everywhere else, and working with their fine motor skills, doing assessments, working with parents, picking up toys, going crazy. But I love it. I can't imagine myself having any other job. They treat us so well there. It's really amazing. One thing that they have at this school that I've never even heard of anywhere else is that they actually provide meals for us. So when the children eat breakfast, lunch, and snack, they prefer us to eat the same foods as they do to encourage the traditional eating. So, when they're having the beans and the chitaga, the chicken, I'm eating it right beside them. And that is just a fantastic part. Every day you don't have to worry about nothing. You come in, the food's ready, the kids are ready there for you. And they take great care of us there. They really do.
Thank you very much. I see there's a question here in the chat. Are there children's books that are written in Cherokee so that future teachers or teachers could use them as resources? My dog just heard your dog.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we do. And like I was saying, the member Hartwell, who we work with closely, he actually takes English books and translates them into Cherokee books. So almost all of our curriculum and stuff is written in the Syllabary language. Like I said, we do all that we can, and we really go above and beyond to limit English in the classroom. That is one of the main things that our supervisors instill in us as employees. Limit that English in the classroom. So if anyone's interested, I can definitely work with Dr. Bryant and even maybe get some copies sent, or if you guys are interested in that, if anyone's interested in like early childhood, one of the requirements for a classroom is having diversity in the classroom. And I would love to provide that for you guys, if possible, of course. So there are 2 forms of the language. There's the syllabary language, which is the actual written form, and there's the phonetic language, which is like an English breakdown. But most people, that's what they know how to read, so they can learn to properly pronounce, because learning syllabary is learning a whole other form of text. So I could even provide both of those, so that way you can speak the language yourself and reading it with the children.
Yeah, and I'll pass those along for sure. Yeah.
What does the calendar school year typically look like? Well, we're just like any other school. We do seasonal events, where recently we're planning a field trip for a pumpkin patch, but like our day-to-day, we have just normal routines, just as any other classroom, breakfast, hand washing, diapering, outside, circle time, that kind of thing. But with like a calendar wise, like long-term yearly, we are a little bit different because we do a lot of cultural events. So we'll have all kinds of things planned where we go to different fields, or we do remembrances. What are your future goals for teaching the language? Do you think they could be taught in high school besides languages such as Spanish or French? That's an interesting question. So I also attended Swain County High School, which is in Bryson City. That's a different school than Cherokee. And they actually offered Cherokee language classes there. They had a Spanish teacher who would take some courses and then teach them, and then take more, and then take the next one. So I am seeing surrounding schools really wanting to implement the language, and I think that's fantastic. The more resources and people we have working towards a similar goal, I really think the better. I do know some universities don't currently accept, I think, the Cherokee credit as like a language credit. So if you're wanting to transfer with that, that would be one issue that would come up, which is an issue I would like to see resolved, of course, because it's just a language as anywhere else. But, I would love to see it even out of the States, or, different parts of the world. That would be amazing. I would love to see that. And what are my future goals for teaching the language? Well, eventually, I graduate with my early childhood degree, or my associate's degree, in this spring, and I'm really hoping to continue on and get an elementary degree. I really love the ages of like 2nd to 4th grade. They are just so wild and all over the place at that age. That is absolutely my favorite. So that's my long-term goal. But I enjoy working with the babies. They really do bring you kind of peace in a weird way. They're crazy, but you know, how can you say no to a cute baby? But yeah, eventually I would like to work with older ages because I feel like, you know, you can provide. Do you have to be a Cherokee descent to attend Cherokee High School? Is it required for every student enrolled in Cherokee High School to learn the language? So yeah, it is required through the school. Like I started my Cherokee language classes in kindergarten, and I think had one like every year that I went on through 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. And I do know that once you get to high school, if you they do offer Spanish and French. So if you personally choose to learn Spanish or French, they do give you that decision. And do you have to be Cherokee descent to attend Cherokee High School? You do not. I do think it's like a public school kind of thing. I think it depends on where you live for them to approve if you can attend or not. But I know several people that are not enrolled members that attend.
One of the things also that, you know, if folks, if you have a question where you're thinking, you know, what could we do to help preserve the language? Like, you know, what could a non-enrolled, maybe a non-Cherokee person who would like to still, you know, help preserve this amazing, beautiful piece of the culture, this amazing language. One of the things that you could do is write your legislatures or your legislator and talk about how deeply offensive it is that in North Carolina, there are colleges that refuse to accept Cherokee as a language. That you send your transcript in, and there are colleges that if they look at it and see that you've taken Cherokee, it doesn't count. Spanish counts, French counts, German would count, you know, but the language that was spoken here before any of those were ever heard doesn't count. And I think that, you know, not to overstate it, but I think it's hard to argue that that is not straight up colonialism, you know, even now in 2021. So I think, you know, if you're thinking, how could we help preserve this language that is genuinely in trouble? You know, I think a great way to do that is fire off an email, you know, fire off a letter and just say, look, I've become aware of this. You know, this is wrong. The more letters they get, the more awake we hope we hope they become.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. You know, there are very small steps and big steps that you can take, but you know, the real work lies in the nitty gritty, you know, writing the legislators, taking the time out of your day. It really does matter. And I do think things like that are important, whether you're enrolled or not, if you truly believe in, you know, protecting Indigenous people everywhere, you know, standing against things like this and even bringing the conversation to light is very important. Since the kids leave you all at 6th grade, what resources do you have in place for those students to continue practicing the language past 6th grade? So that if they attend Cherokee, all of Cherokee Central Schools has an immersion program, which is like the same thing, but it's not based out of Kituwah. But they'll be in normal classes, but they'll probably have, I think, an extra class that they have to take, which is a little bit, they teach, I guess, the harder parts of the language. The Cherokee language is an extremely, extremely difficult language to learn if you're very English oriented. I will say, someone myself who was raised on English, you know, raised speaking English, even despite all the classes that I took, it is still very, very difficult because it's very different. There are even times where I legitimately felt embarrassed to speak my own Indigenous language because I've been so indoctrinated in the English language. To me, it sounded weird, it sounded funny, but really that I should never have ever felt that way. You know, a lot of the language too is, you know, how some languages have a specific, I'm trying to think of the word, like the way they talk. The Cherokee people have the same way. Some of the words are kind of nasally coming out of your nose. Some of the words have a slight lisp to it. Some of the words are different across different tribes. Different people have different words for things. So, you know, sometimes you can come to like disagreement with someone on how you pronounce certain words. So there's a lot that goes into the language that people don't think about. The grammatical things of learning the language. These are all things that the immersion children will work on because they know they have those foundations. They're not going to be teaching them dog, cat, how to say blue, red, because they know they're past that. And for the most part, they've done an excellent job of making sure those children end up in a place that's going to benefit them at the level that they're at. Unfortunately, if they choose to go to Swain or another school, we can't guarantee, of course, because they're not a program of ours. But about half of the students, I would say, go to Cherokee. A surprising number go to schools off the reservation. And that's something that I've been interested in, seeing maybe why that is. But that's a whole other tangent. Sorry about that. Okay, well, I think I didn't skip anyone's questions, right? Okay, I don't think so. Are there any children's books? Okay.
And y'all can also, if you don't want to type it in the chat, please feel free just to, pipe in as well. Either one of those is definitely okay. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about, because these folks, a lot of the future teachers who are here, they're going to be future teachers in North Carolina. And the situation of being a teacher in the state is vastly different, I think, from being a teacher in Cherokee. And you've mentioned part of that is, the EBCI really supports education. I should have mentioned this earlier. For the Gadugi program, it's not some sort of charity. Students pay tuition, except no student has to pay the tuition. The Cherokee pay it. The tribe pays that tuition. So any student at Cherokee High School that wants to sign up for one of these classes, I have never yet, had the principal say to me, oh, and by the way, you can only take this many because it's all we can afford. What I hear is get as many as you can get and we'll find the money. We'll find it for the kids. Could you tell us a little bit about what it means to work in a place where what you do is actually valued? Because a lot of these teachers are gonna, and I don't mean to be depressing for the rest of us, but a lot of these teachers are going to be confronting having to spend their own money just to have the bare necessities in their classroom. And I know Cherokee teachers spend their own money as well, but it just seems like, and if I'm wrong, tell me that too, but it really feels like Cherokee values education and educators in a way that this state just doesn't. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, and I additionally have the experience of working on a school off of the reservation. Before I began working at Kituwah Academy, I worked at a daycare center based out of Bryson. They were a state-funded facility. And I can just tell you that it's a night and day difference. Whenever you have proper funding, when you have community members that legitimately care, when you have the resources you need, when you have teachers that aren't stressed and as bombarded by just the financial pressure of maintaining the classroom, you have just a complete different effect on how staff operate and how students operate. Just in the foods they eat, it's difficult, but the schools can only afford what they can afford. When I worked at the other daycare, most of the meals are meals that, are easily prepared because it's for hundreds of students across the state. We'd pick it up from an elementary school and bring it to the daycare. So we were eating the same foods that they were. And you guys know the typical lunch, the fruit cocktail, the white bread with peanut butter, it's not exactly nutrient. It helps you live, but it's not exactly nutrient. But here at Kituwah Academy, especially, just the incorporation of native foods and stuff. I know I'm a homeowner and I buy all my own foods. It's not cheap. Produce is a lot. And that's one of the things that I have the budget for. I have the budget for my cucumbers and fresh tomatoes and all that. So to see that we go to a school where they provide that, to every level that they get, the children get fresh foods, fresh vegetables. We're able to have, good, clean toys for them to use, books without, being ripped. So going from a facility that just didn't have those resources and wanted them, it can be disheartening. But one piece of advice that I would give to you guys is that if you reach out, there are resources available to you, even in the state. I was a state teacher. I know what it's like. We applied for grants and we did everything we did everything we can. My director and me would keep our eye out for grants and try to get people to help, try to get people to donate. But one thing I will say is that we as educators need to band together and create a conversation where we change this. We shouldn't have to learn how to adapt. We should learn how to use our voices to prevent these things from happening. Because, it's going to come to a point where our children and our children's children are going to be relying on us to be the voices, especially as a teacher now more than ever. I think about that constantly. So I don't know, maybe I'm trying to think of a way people can contact me if you're ever interested in new Kituwah stuff, because we do have people come down, like we have a yoga instructor. Because of COVID, they haven't been recently, but we'll have a yoga. They give the kids yoga. We have someone that, sorry, my cat. We have different people that work in like biology and they show us the salamanders. We have people that work in food and work with the kids and preparing in the classroom. So we have participants from all over the place. And, you know, even if you just want to polish up that resume and say, hey, I volunteered at this school working with Indigenous people, hit me up, because I am always wanting to provide the best resources for my classroom. So let me see, I'm gonna actually add my email for you guys. And this is my personal email. Please don't spam me. But you know, if you're ever interested, feel free just to shoot me an email.
Thank you for that offer, by the way. Thank you so much. Let's let you guys ask some more questions. We got about 20 minutes or so left. So I want to open it up for y'all. Please feel free to ask anything you'd like.
Let's see here. I'm trying to think of some interesting things I could explain, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's a school, so it can be a bit dry in the education field. So one thing we do at the school is all the staff and all the children, we adopt Cherokee names. So some children, their parents from the get-go, they're named a Cherokee name, and that's what they are their whole lives. But for a lot of the children, they have an English name. So my name being Ayla was translated into Ehla. So my name at the school is Miss Ehla. My coworker, her last name is Brown. So her name is like Awotage. That's how you say Brown in Cherokee. So everyone kind of gets to choose their name, which is fun. I wish I was more creative. I have a coworker who goes by Kat, so her name is Weisha. But I don't know, maybe if you guys would be interested, if you ever want to come to Cherokee, I love when people create a Cherokee name for themselves and truly introduce themselves. I think it's a great immersive way.
That's also really powerful, because one of the first things the missionaries did was take away the Cherokee name.
Yeah.
That was, they actually would put, they called them, of all things, bounties. And what you could do is you could sponsor a Cherokee child. And when you sent your donation in, they then took the child's name away and renamed the child for whoever had donated the money. And so the Indian names were called, you know, heathen, they were called savage, they were called pagan, but it was, you know, and it was policy. It wasn't just something that occasionally happened. When you showed up and you came in with your traditional name, and names were incredibly important. You know, traditionally, the name usually fell to the grandfather or the grandmother. And if they weren't alive, it fell to the eldest. You know, if it was a little girl, it fell to the eldest female relative, who then would bestow, you know, this name on them that would always have, you know, meaning. So it wasn't as if, you know, they just named their kids whatever they could think of, and then those names were taken. The names were meaningful, they were cultural. Mm-hmm. And you know, it was government policy to erase those names, to get rid of those names. And you know, I think so, to hear that part of what the Academy does is the other direction, right? Returning it in the other way. I think that's incredibly powerful, and what a great way to decolonize you know, the education system. I just think that's a beautiful thing, because it you know, it speaks to undoing 2 centuries of, you know, cultural genocide. I love that. I love hearing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know if I touched on this too, but we work with all staff members to speak the language. So the people who work in the kitchen to the people who help keep our rooms clean and sanitized and safe for the children, all of us are speaking. So, you know, the schools really, like I said before, created a strong network. And, you know, I really like the way that you phrase it, the way that we did go the complete opposite. Now, you know, when I introduce myself in my own language with my own name. And I do find that powerful. I do agree.
Do you all still have, the last time I got to visit, you know, obviously finding Cherokee curriculum was tough. It didn't exist. So it was the last time I got to come up, it was actually, it was being made as you went. There was like a print shop, I think, in the lower level of the school. And I think it was Myrtle, is that right? Who was busy, when I visited, she was busy translating Charlotte's Web. And she had just finished translating all of Charlotte's Web. And it was actually, copies were being printed in the school. In fact, I have downstairs, I have a children's book that was printed on campus. Are y'all still printing your own materials and able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know the legalities about, copyrights and all that, but we do a really fantastic job of incorporating things that children are legitimately interested in now. So we have like Avengers posters, and we have Hulk. We call him Odze because that means green. So we'll be Odze, Odze, that's what we call the Hulk. We have like Disney characters, and we do a lot of fun stuff like that. So we're definitely making stuff like that for the hallways, but curriculum wise, like I said, we work directly with the workers and speakers. And so a part of our job is we have to do a weekly curriculum. So we're given different topics that they want us to go over throughout the year. So right now we're going over 5 senses. So what we do is we work with the speakers. We say, how do you say taste? How do you say I see? And we take all that information and incorporate it weekly. So, and that's all written in Cherokee. So we, as teachers, that's a bigger part of the job. There are 3 of us in a classroom, which is another thing that's different than typical schools. That our teacher to student ratio is just absolutely fantastic. We have 9 babies with 3 teachers. So we have a 1-to-3 ratio. And with that, we are able to work with children very hands-on. When they do coloring pages, or like I said, the books that we went over, that's all in the Cherokee language. And, with the older children, because I'm on the early childhood side, I can only speak for that. But I know with them, they also have worksheets. And I've seen personally, even when they're doing math, they got, different stuff with the Cherokee incorporated in it. So I think the resources now are just so abundant that the teachers have, absolute access to creating curriculum. But our curriculum is just the same as anyone else. I think we start working on like fall topics next week. So we're getting all the little pumpkins ready for the kids to paint. And I think I'm trying to think of what we have after that. I believe it's dinosaurs. And that's another fun one. The children really love when we do that one.
That's awesome. Boy, that's a good question. That's powerful.
Do you teach the history of what Native Americans went through? If so, does it ever scare the students away from the language and being immersed in their culture? That is a fantastic question. I really enjoy that question. So like I said, I'm on the early childhood side. History isn't really a huge part of the curriculum. It's definitely not something that we shy away from. Of course, with me working with 1-year-olds, they're not as like cognitive to have these conversations. But I do know that there was an instance in the pre-K room where they were having that same conversation. One of the students, one of her great grandmothers had actually passed. And the teachers were just discussing, how they knew her. They were a bit older, so they were just sharing and, just sharing in the classroom. And the student had actually, the grandchild who had went there had actually asked the teacher and began asking about why that happened. Why were they so mean to my great grandma? Why were they doing that? And so, of course, in a developmentally appropriate way, we explained that there were bad people and they wanted to take her culture away from her. And that's why you never stop speaking. That's why we share this with you. Of course, there will come a point where they will have to learn that. And it is going to be difficult because I myself went through that. Right around that 3rd, 4th grade age, when you start really understanding, it can be difficult and it's a lot to take in as a child. Because from my point of view and from the other Indigenous children, that's our family. That's not a historical person in the past. That's grandma. That's great grandma. That's my dad's grandma to me. So, of course, with working here, you also have to have a very spiritual sense to yourself. There's a very spiritual aspect of working with young children. There's a very spiritual aspect of being able to stay patient, staying calm, always wanting what's best for the children, even if that means putting your feelings on the back burner. Because I'll be honest, there are some days where if you got 9 crying babies and you've been there since 7 a.m., not every day is perfect. Not every day, I'm just jumping with joy to be there. But I sit back and remember what my spiritual role is here and how working with these children to trust me and to trust the language will later bridge them on to continue trusting the language and trusting their teachers, continuing to go on and independently wanting to learn. I have children all the time in the pre-K room that come up to me wanting to know, how do I say this? How do I say that? And that is a really, I would say, bridging part of the teacher-student relationship, because understanding the importance of it is one thing, but actually going through and supporting the children understanding that is a whole other role that we play. So does it ever scare the students? Unfortunately, someday it will. And I'm going to do everything I can to be there for them when it does.
Would you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I can tell you, I think that we, being the people who are supposed to get teachers ready, we do a nightmare, miserable job at talking about the spiritual side of this job. And I am so grateful that you brought that up, because, being a teacher is a calling. It's a vocation. It's not just a job. You're called for it or you're not. And I've always believed that. But I think American culture gets so uncomfortable talking about spirituality that we don't, myself included, we don't build these guys up that way. We don't talk enough about that, about the spiritual side. Would you mind sharing just a little more about that? Because I think, oh my goodness, I think that is so useful for these folks to hear. And they're not hearing enough of it from us. They're just not.
And one of the main things in education that we hear about is this, oh, we don't make enough money, the salary. That's one of the main foundational issues. But like you said, the other thing is the way that we're prepared, the way that we're not really taught emotionally how to, handle the stress of being a teacher, because working with the vulnerable is just that, working with the vulnerable. The spiritual aspect of it is extremely important to me. I know, as a woman, as someone with 2 younger sisters who I've, watched grow up throughout my life, and, anyone that has children or anyone that's like worked with children closely, maybe you have younger siblings, that a child's emotion is so fragile and so difficult to balance, because in the same way that we can't ignore their feelings, the same way we can't negate them or make them feel as if their feelings are wrong, we also have to guide them through those decisions. We have to guide them through the choices they're making. We have to be there when they fall, quite literally in the 1-year-old room. But having patience and having this job, when I was 14 years old and you told me I was going to be working with 1-year-olds and that, I'd be working in this, I would have never thought. Having patience is something that has definitely come to me and I've learned. And just, I remember whenever our semester started and we got our 1-year-olds over the summer and they were starting for the first time, it was so emotionally hard. I really went home and sobbed like those first 3 days. But I did that because I felt the energy of, why am I away from my mom for the first time? Why did they leave me here? I don't understand. I don't want to be here. And I don't even have the power to make the decision to leave or stay. And knowing that, they're babies and of course they're going to get over it at some point, feeling that and really holding it and not scolding them. Why are you crying? There's nothing wrong with you. I've never said that in my classroom. I don't believe in that. There's nothing wrong with you. You're okay. I've never said that, whether it is a real issue or not. They wanted the green Lego and all that's left is blue. To them, that's an extremely big issue. And who am I to say, in their life and what they're going through, that you don't have no reason to cry? Because I know myself as an adult, during that time of month and there's not that candy bar on the shelf, you know what? I went home and cried. And if someone told me there ain't nothing wrong with you, I'd be so mad. So I really do try to work with the babies as little people. And I think having that mutual respect is super important and they feel it. The children trust me so much. And one of the best feelings is whenever I'm out in public and they run up to me and they're just talking to me and pulling on me. And that is the most rewarding part of education. And, I know we've discussed some of the issues that we face as educators. I just want you guys to know it is so worth it. And there is a place for you, and you just have to look for it. You have to find it, and you can't be afraid to quit. If I would have never quit my last job, I would have never got this one. So that would be my advice. If you're not happy and you feel that the management isn't good and you're not in a place where you want to be, you have all the power in the world to, quit that job and find somewhere else. So I guess, an ending note, I know we're getting to like a closing point here, but as an educator, that is one thing I'd like to say. And as a young person, I know that we kind of got the college age people here, and, just in this realm, we're always looking for opportunities, and we're always looking for my career and where am I going to start? And I had that same feeling, but if I would have never had the strength to leave my last job, I wouldn't have got to this one. So I will say, you will find yourself and you will find your people. I didn't think I would, but I did. In a roundabout way, I came right where I started, but I couldn't be happier.
Thank you for that. That was great. That was so great. I've got one more question, but I feel like I'm hogging it. So anybody else want to put a question here in the chat, or have a question or a comment, any of the above that you might like to either ask a question, or is there something you might like to say? Because I don't want to hog the spotlight. Okay, well, let me go ahead and ask this one then, and feel free to type over here and we can definitely get to that. I set the Zoom link up, I think, till like 10:30, so we can ask all the questions you want to ask. I didn't know how to set it for shorter than that. So one of the things I really would love for you to talk with, especially, and I apologize, I know there's several of y'all here who aren't, or you might be pre-service teachers, but you're not in my class. So, and I also know there are some who aren't future teachers here. So I apologize that I keep coming back to this, but I do have a lot of my kids, I'm sorry, y'all, a lot of my students here tonight. And I wonder if you could tell us, how do you take care of you? Because one of the things that I think about is, I said this to one of the speakers we had last year, there's more burden on you than should be. There's more pressure on you than is fair, because you aren't just teaching literature. You aren't just teaching literacy. You're on the front lines of trying to save a culture. I mean, that's not melodramatic at all. You're right there with Dragging Canoe, as far as I'm concerned, in preserving what it is to be Cherokee, in serving and defending the people. And you're still a young woman. That's quite, it could be quite a burden. It could be an awful lot of responsibility. I know my students, they feel when their kids hurt. They feel when one of their children comes in hungry. That's the kind of kids, sorry, y'all, that's the kind of young people I get to teach. They take it home with them. They cry when their kids cry. And so could you tell them a little, tell all of us, how do you take care of you at the end of the day with all that responsibility? How do you make sure you're okay?
Oh, especially in this post-COVID world, I'm sure we've all heard it. Take up a hobby. When I get stressed, I read a good book. If I'm honest, I'm not that kind of person. When I'm stressed, I'm very fortunate to have people around me that truly allow me to express myself, and that, truly just allow me to let it all out. Because sometimes you have thoughts in your head and you have feelings and you don't really have them organized until you just get them out and say it. And there have been times where, oh, this made me so mad, but the more I talk about it, I can see their point of view. I'm glad I did this. So whether it be my mom or my sister or even my coworker, I'm just a talker. I really do think, language is power, and, sharing what you feel with someone is so important. I found, especially with some of the elders, within my own family and the ones I work with the children, they've just been, taught through the harsh world because they had to just keep moving on. Just, it's over with, let's not talk about it. And, unfortunately, that's what they had to do to survive. And now we know as educators that that's really not good for the psyche. It's not good for the spirit. And so one of my big things is I like to work even with the children or teachers or parents, if they have concerns or if they're having issues with home, maybe mom and dad are fighting. That definitely affects the children, and it definitely affects mom. And sometimes all the power in the world can be just for me to listen for 5 minutes, for me to say, hey, what's going on? I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to listen. I think, that's what holds the power. As far as taking care of myself, I'm very lucky to be in an environment, like I said, where we have great resources. Our staff members, we're not bogged down and overstressed, scratching for resources. We have that. So we're able to have a very tight-knit group of staff, and we all work very closely together. The better we work together, the better the kids are. And so, throughout my life, I would say whether it's at school or a personal situation or, life just puts you through stuff, I always believe in talking it out. Whether you feel it one time or 10 times, there have been times my poor husband have heard me complain about the same thing 30 times. But knowing I always have that person there is extremely important. And even if, maybe I told him that story 2 times a day and I still want to tell it, I'll tell my coworker, I'll call my mom, I'll text my best friend and say, I just got to talk about it. And, and with my children too, like today we had a little girl and her mom sent her in these shoes and she just hates them. And every time she wears them, she tells me. And throughout the day, she's like, Miss Ayla, I don't like these shoes. She's always taking them off, peeling those socks off. And so I used my voice to tell her mom, I was like, these shoes aren't staying on at school. What can we do to get some more sandals? So this next week, she's been in the shoes that she likes. So even though she had that problem, she didn't stop talking about it. She kept bringing it up until change happened. So I think that's a good lesson for us all to learn.
It's great. Thank you. Anybody else? Would you have a question or a comment or anything? We're here at 8 o'clock, so I know I don't want to keep Ayla too long. I know you've got to, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Natalie, go right ahead.
Sorry. Just wanted to pipe in and ask, since we're towards the end, Ayla, is there anything like I'm going to be a middle school teacher, but just that you wish more people were talking about in the schools related to Cherokee culture, history, just anything that really strikes you that is not being talked about enough? I'm sure there's a lot of things, but.
Well, like I said, I've worked in other schools aside from Cherokee, and I've attended other schools. As a Cherokee person, unfortunately, people are quick to give advice. People are quick to say, oh, stay away from alcohol. You spend your money on this. This is what happened to your people. And, there's a lot of negative connotation around my culture. And one thing I wish I had more growing up with the other schools that I attended is I wish that they showed me more about the pride of my people. I wish they taught me more about the chiefs and the art we produce and the most intelligent scholars that we've had. And that really didn't truly happen until I took Dr. Bryant's course, and he really showed us we had geniuses, we had artists, we had philosophers, we had people that studied society. And I just wish more Cherokee children knew how powerful and strong they are. Of course, we have trauma and stuff within our culture, but I think even beyond that, I would have loved to hear more positive things, more happy things that are going around, just so I can have a positive connotation when I hear of my culture. And especially with teachers, the state kind of just teaches you, tell them about the murder and the slaughter, and then kind of just move on. I wish more of the curriculum incorporated, like the creation of the syllabary, the different stories that we have, the different travels and stuff that our people went on. That would be something that I would love to see. And it looks like we have another question. How can we better teach Thanksgiving and Columbus Day? It has been taught incorrectly for ages. And I was wondering if you had any tips for us to be more respectful towards Indigenous people when covering these topics. Yeah, we talked about this before. I don't believe in Columbus Day, just like I'm sure Jewish people don't believe in Hitler Day. And so I do personally believe in, Indigenous Peoples Day. And so I think, even just changing that name, I know some people find that as a controversial statement, but when you really research of who this man was and what he did, most people wouldn't celebrate that. And I think, just bringing that to light and allowing people to make that choice of who you celebrate and knowing the cold, hard facts behind it. I got a caller here. But they've been teaching it, incorrectly for ages. Like I said, just providing that real knowledge. It's harsh and it's hard, and especially with children, and it could put a burden on you of how do I discuss this extremely serious issue with this child? How do I make it in a way that's understanding to them? And how do I do it in a way where it doesn't damage their spirit? You know, most children have the biggest hearts. And at that age, when we're children, we lose our vulnerability in adulthood. You know, I have children, if they see another kid fall, they'll start crying. And, you know, as adults, we really lose that empathy. And so I think children want to know what the truth is. Children want to support the right side, and children want to express, you know, how that was wrong for them. I think just allowing children to share their opinion and letting them say, well, what do you think? Here are the facts, could be something that's really beneficial, especially at that middle school age. I don't know if that was the same person that asked that, but how can we, okay, I hope I covered it. I just will say, I'm not a public speaker, so I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. You guys have asked some amazing questions and made it really easy on me, so I thank you for that. Been nervous all day, but I feel good about what we did here. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much. It was great. It was really, really great. Thank you for, sharing your experiences with us. We really, really, really appreciate it. And you did wonderfully. You did absolutely great. I appreciate you being here. I've said it before. You're one of my heroes. You really are. So just keep fighting the good fight. Keep doing the good work. And one thing I will tell you is those of us, especially those of us who are in education, I think we're really going to take to heart what we heard here tonight. And I think we all know we have a role to play. There's so much that we can do to support what you're doing there on the boundary. And, I think the world of you. I'm so proud of you, you and Chance both. So I just love you all to pieces. Thank you for agreeing to do this. It means the world to us. So, anybody have a last a question or anything you'd like to say before we sign out here? I really appreciate everybody who came tonight. Thank you so much. They were terrific questions. Very, very thoughtful. Great stuff. We'll be back again on Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll have Mr. Kachi Tiger talking to us, the high school teacher. So tell your friends, tell your family, bring everybody that you can think of. We'd love to have even more folks next time. So, but really appreciate it. I don't want to cut anybody off though. Does anybody have a question or anything you'd like to share before we say goodnight? I know there's I love this. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye, which I absolutely love. The closest that the culture have is basically till I see you again. And I'm not going to try to say it because I would mangle it. But so we won't say goodbye tonight. We'll say till we see you again. But any last questions or thoughts? All right, Ayla, again, thank you so very, very much. I'm very grateful for your time. Everybody, y'all have a great, great night. And some of y'all I'll see tomorrow morning. And for the rest of you, have a great evening and thank you for being here.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.